This episode is brought to you by Camilla Najat with Exit Realty Metro.
Camilla Najat is an experienced real estate agent who prides herself in finding the perfect home for her clients. Camilla can help you with a comparative market analysis to help determine the value of your home if you're planning on selling, or help you determine the going rate for the neighborhood you're moving into. She can also work with you at your pace.
You can reach Camilla by calling 902-880-8429 or email camilla@exitmetro.ca.
Also, you can find her on Facebook at Camilla Najat, Exit Realty Metro. This is Matt Conrad.
And this is Mike Tobin.
Welcome to the Afternoon Pint.
This week we speak with Terry Spearns and Kelley Williston of the Nova Scotia International Student Program. We learn about how this program helps foster international students and families, sharing spaces and cultures, broadening the human experience for all. If there's an extra room in your home and you feel this is the right experience for you, go to nsisp.ca to learn more. Thanks again to Station 6 in Spryfield, Nova Scotia for the great beer and location to record this episode. Enjoy. Welcome to the Afternoon Pint. I'm Mike Tobin.
I'm Matt Conrad. And we are welcoming Kelley and Terry here from NSISP. Yeah, there you go. That's a mouthful. So first off, I guess what we should say is, what does the acronym stand for? Let's start there.
So it's the Nova Scotia International Student Program.
Cool.
Awesome. So Nova Scotia International Student Program, what is it? Just give us a quick kind of high level. What do you guys do? What do you bring? Like, obviously, I know that you bring in international students into Nova Scotia, but yeah, give us some more details about it.
So it's a consortium of the 7 English school boards and the French, the CSAP. And we work together. We're one large provincial program. So we're run by, we have a central office that sets the policy for all of the regional centers for education. And we work together in partnership with the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development. And we bring students in from all over the world. And we bring them here to Nova Scotia and we integrate them in our schools and our families and our communities.
And at any age, from like primary up?
Grades used to be.
Okay.
Now it's grades 7 to 12.
Cool.
Yeah.
7 to 12. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I don't even think I've ever met anyone that was younger than grade 9. I don't think. But that's interesting. Mm-hmm. Do you get a lot of like grade 7, grade 8s coming in?
We used to.
Yeah.
Definitely we had more, and we had groups of students that would come together as a group. But more so, the majority of the students are high school age.
Yeah, it seems that way though. Yeah. I know because I've chaperoned a couple of events and things like that in the past, like the ski times and all that stuff. I think, but it's a really cool program. I mean, I think everyone has grown up with some sort of like what used to be like an exchange program and things like that in the past, but this is obviously a lot different than that. This is just recruiting people to kind of come here and experience something very different. There's obviously some details involved into it, but how is it that you find the families? Like, how do you go out? Or do they just immediately apply? Do they look?
They just appear out of thin air.
They appear out of thin air.
I wish.
Awesome. Yeah.
No, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a full-time, 12-month, 24/7 job recruiting families, because everyone's life circumstances change. Yeah. You know, especially we noticed that a lot in COVID. So all of a sudden that spare room that you had is now your office.
Right.
Because you work from home. Right. Or your kids had to return home, or your elderly parents are living with you now. So especially since COVID, we noticed, we had a real decline in host families, or people just weren't interested anymore. So that's really ramped up. But regardless, it's a full-time job every year because it's always a revolving door. Yeah.
So finding the families, that's the hardest part. What about the students? Do they is it easier to find recruiting? Do you have to travel at all in terms of like other countries to promote it or anything like that?
Yeah, we do. We travel and recruit quite a bit. And the whole idea behind that is if we're not sitting across the table or we're not in the front of that classroom, somebody else is. Right. Because every country now pretty much recruits international students. Yeah. So we do recruit, but we work with agency partners in these home countries, and we have strong partnerships and contracts with them. Right. And we've built a really great reputation here in Nova Scotia because of, I'm going to say primarily, the staff, number one, because it's we always say it's not just a job, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I mean that full-heartedly, and Terry can attest to that. And then in terms of families, I think, everybody wants to go to Canada. That's a well-known. When I travel, I mean, everybody's excited when they find out you're Canadian. Everybody wants to go to Canada. But when you say, how many of you know where Nova Scotia is? Crickets. They want to go to Vancouver.
Yes.
They want to go to Toronto.
Montreal. Yeah.
So we have to sell 4 times as hard as those other programs. But I'll tell you what sells us is our homestay program, because I don't think that there's any hospitality in Canada that is equivalent to what we have here in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, because you really are competing against other provinces at this point.
Oh,
right?
100%.
Because you're trying to lure people in here and everything. Yeah. It's funny because, Terry's obviously been doing this for a long time in terms of just homestaying, actually having the students stay with her. I don't know, how long have you been doing it, 10 years?
Actually 11. I started hosting in 2012, December of 2012.
Okay.
Yep. And then in 2015, they offered me a job.
There you go. Yeah. That's the thing. So I know you've been doing it for quite some time, and I've seen a lot of students come and go, whether it be your students or my mother's hosted some, or just the students in general. I mean, what I personally find what's really cool about this program is that you get to have conversations with people from all around the world about their culture and just the differences. And I actually find them very interesting conversations. I mean, some may think they're just high school students, but they're young adults and they're coming with history. They're coming with, they're smart. It's often you have to be pretty adventurous to say, I'm leaving my family for a year, or even if it's just a couple months, and I'm going to up and leave my family at 15 years old and move to a place I've never heard of before and, integrate myself in this place. So I've always had really, really great conversations, with a lot of them, right? So I think it's actually a great opportunity for a host family to not only, there's some financial benefits, obviously, and we can get into that. But on top of that, there's the world comes to you. So it's pretty cool, some really interesting things there.
Exactly. Well, our slogan is bring the world home.
There you go.
And for exactly that reason, because, a lot of people don't get the opportunity to travel or meet different cultures or learn about different cultures. So this is a way of bringing the world home in your living room, at your kitchen table, in your community, and learning firsthand from these students.
It's beautiful.
It is. And you know what the other cool thing about it is? It's not that it's the purpose of doing it, but you learn, especially if they live with you for a year it's a long time to live with somebody, and you build real friendships, almost like family type friendships. We still have people that come back to visit us, and they're we just had one who came back from Italy, and she still refers to me as her. I never lived with her because I was an adult when she came to my parents' place, but she still says I'm her house brother kind of thing, right? She still refers to my son as her nephew and things like that, right? It's just one of those things that they become family, and that's a really special thing. But
exposing your own kids to the world
outside
of the one you live in, I think is so vitally important. Raising a kid right now, it's the biggest thing we're trying to teach, or one of the many things you're trying to teach every day, it's don't worry about the shoebox, right? You're going to expand from that. There's a whole world out there of possibility, and it's so cool and vast. These small little scary moments, they'll go away.
Because our kids don't travel the world. Typically, our kids here from Nova Scotia don't travel the world like these other countries do. We typically kind of grow up, live in Nova Scotia, stay in Nova Scotia.
Right. Yeah.
So you're absolutely right.
And it gives these young students a sense of maturity, right? Because just by traveling the world, the problems that other student might have that grew up in Halifax or Dartmouth, they might be a little bit insignificant, or they might feel that there's a little insignificant, right? So I just think it's really cool to help open up people's eyes to the other cultures that exist.
That's what I've told my host families as well. A lot of them will say, oh, maybe I'll do it when Johnny moves out or goes to university. And Kelly can attest to the fact because she brought up her daughter with several
30 to be exact.
30 international students.
30
Oh my
international
gosh.
students, yeah.
Wow. Woo.
So her daughter got to grow up with these kids.
Yeah.
And, you don't want to wait until your kids are out of the house. You want them there. You want them to see that and build these friendships from across the world.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you said, like, with the traveling and stuff like that, like, traveling can come a whole lot cheaper if you know people to stay with across the world. So
That's true. You get invites. That's true.
exactly,
Yeah,
and
it does happen.
Not that that's why you do this, but it is a really nice spin-off.
The families and the students are so appreciative
Yeah.
of the opportunity and the experience that you provide their children here. I can't even tell you that I had people all over the world begging me to send my daughter to their country. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
I'm a little nervous. And they were like, are you kidding me? I sent my daughter to live with you for a year and you won't send your daughter over here for a month? So I didn't reciprocate.
Nova Scotia is a little bit safer than like Ecuador.
I know. But when she got older,
of course.
she was in university. She took 2 years off, and my daughter traveled the world.
Wow.
And floated around and lived with all of her international sisters. All over the world. And I was absolutely petrified that she wasn't going to come back and wasn't going to get her
what a
degree.
beautiful experience.
Flash forward,
That's awesome.
it all worked out.
Yeah.
She ended up with a double major. She graduated. She did just fine.
Right.
But at the time, I kind of thought she was going to end up being this kind of gypsy that was
yeah.
going to float around with all of her international host sisters. But what a great experience.
I mean, you could probably make some sort of, like, now with the day of Instagram, you could probably make a career out of that.
You probably could.
The international Instagram, Facebook.
Especially if you hosted 30. That's a lot to visit.
exactly.
Yeah, you have a
I
lot
just
of,
want to
lot of
interject
footage.
there. I also have hosted 30 students.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Okay.
Are you up to
Nice.
30?
I'm up to 30.
Wow.
Yeah.
And from 14 different countries.
Wow.
Right?
That's cool.
But the difference between Kelly and me is I host 2 at a time. So that's why my numbers are higher. Or the
okay.
same, but in a shorter period of time.
Right. So yeah, shorter period of time.
Being a food guy, just very simple. Like, have you been introduced to a lot of different cool foods and ideas or from the kids? What do you think?
Terry ate crickets.
Oh, wow.
I did.
Crickets.
Yes. But I ate those in Mexico.
Yeah.
Were they
But that
chocolate
was
coated or no?
But that was
No.
Oh,
but that was because of the international student program.
Okay.
That's right. I went to visit one of my students in Mexico.
Okay.
And I stayed with his family for 2 weeks, and they were awesome. And they made me eat crickets.
Yeah.
But I think it's called chapulina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they're called down
It's
there.
a delicacy.
Did you like it?
I ate them 3 times.
That's pretty good.
The
That's
first
really good.
time was after having
Lots
some
of
beer.
lots of.
Yeah.
I was gonna say lots of mezcal.
Cerveza.
Yeah.
The
Cerveza
second
mezcal.
time, I was fully aware. Mm-hmm. And the third time, I just keep telling myself that they're walnuts, crunchy like walnuts.
So they taste like walnuts?
No.
Oh, okay.
But they were salty. They were salty?
Yeah, very. I love
Okay.
salt. Ask
Yes.
Brendan; he ate some.
Yeah, he did eat them, but he almost threw up because they were like a little bit wet.
Yeah, they were very good.
They didn't look
I
good.
had one that night too, and they were good.
Ugh. Yeah.
But they were very good in Mexico, and you eat them with lime and salt. So
Cool.
But you must have had students that cooked different meals for you.
Yeah, I
or-
did. Mostly the Italians like to cook.
Yeah.
Okay.
Carbonara is always a favorite.
Yeah.
Quesadilla, that one's an easy one.
Yeah, true. But there's some interesting, like I know like my parents are hosting a teacher actually right now, so they actually are hosting a teacher for a month, and she's from Turkey, and she's been cooking some like Turkish dishes and things
Fabulous.
like that. So yeah, like that's kind of cool. So it's another like kind of a cool perk that you can have, like they can introduce this world delicacy, which is actually something that I did during COVID to kind of help pass the time. Is every Wednesday, my wife and I were like, we're working from home. What are we going to do? Like, so every Wednesday we decided we're going to cook a different international food. And you can learn so much about a culture through their food. And that's what we did. We like leaned hard into it, and we decided like we're going to do research. We'll read about the where it comes from and all this stuff, and just make something. And so yeah, you get a lot of this stuff.
Good
You talk
for you
about the
guys.
food and stuff
Yeah.
like that, right? So I mean, there's been a lot of great students that have come through, and they've, for the most part, they seem like really good kids, right?
I've had many students that were fabulous in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Once I knew that I could trust them, because honestly, you do have to worry about them using appliances and using stoves.
Yeah,
and,
things are
and
different.
different things. So, you don't know if they're going to put metal in the microwave. I mean, I
Right.
could tell you stories.
Yeah.
But once you know that they're quite adept in the kitchen, I've had students that cooked for me, I'm embarrassed to say, full time. And then when they left, I was like, how am I ever going to get back up to speed again? I would walk in the door. They would text me, I'm making this for supper. Does this sound good? I'm like, that sounds wonderful. I get home from work. Dinner was made.
Wow.
I got fairly spoiled.
And so, so we can get into, I guess, some of the logistics of it. So, obviously, if you decide to be a host parent, you get compensated for hosting these students. So what is compensation and all that stuff? What does that look like?
Yeah, so compensation is $775 a month.
Yeah.
And that's meant to cover their room and board and reasonable transportation.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
But food as well?
Food as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, when you work it out, when you do the math and you work it out, it's definitely, it's not a moneymaker.
No,
and
it's an experience.
that's right. It's an experience, and we're not looking for families that are motivated by,
let's set a bad precedent.
Yeah, but we're not looking for anybody that's Mother Teresa either.
Right.
We're not expecting people to do this for free, but there is a component of it for sure that's meant to be a labor of love. I mean, we want people that are genuinely interested in these students, genuinely interested in bringing this culture and this diversity into their home, teaching their own children, learning something, showing off this beautiful province that we live in. There's so many perks to it that we can talk about in terms of being a host family. There are so many perks to it, but making money is not one of them. And I like to be very clear about that
and
up
to be
front.
Clear, so if someone's listening to this episode right now, and say they listen to everything that we said here now in the first 10 minutes, and they're like, okay, I'm hooked. I'm hook, line, and sinker. You got me.
Yeah.
What are some of the drawbacks? I want to say drawbacks, but what are some of the things that you do have to make sure you're cognitively aware of? Because sometimes it's kind of like adopting
it's like adopting a pet. You have to fully know what you're getting into.
Well, I think I can speak from my own personal experience, and I've heard enough of this because I was a host parent before I worked for the program. So now I sit on the other side. And I think, there's a lot of fears of the unknown. I was there at one time myself. I'm sure Terry was. Just in terms of opening up your home and your private space to a stranger is a very intimidating thing, because it's not something to take lightly. You're taking in a person, a human being, from the other side of the world that someone has entrusted you with their child. Right. So, thinking about opening up your home and your private space and bringing this person in, and what if it doesn't work out? And what if I don't feel comfortable? And what if I just want to lounge around in my PJs and I don't feel like getting dressed? Or, do you know what I mean? What if I'm just not always feeling like I want to be looking my best or entertaining somebody? What does that look like when you've got a stranger here from a foreign country that's completely reliant on you? So I think what most families are surprised by, and myself personally, and like I said, enough families have come through that I've seen this, is that, they realize that the perks and the benefits far outweigh any of the, I just want to let it all hang loose in my own privacy of my own home. And, are we going to be good enough? Are we going to be entertaining enough? How much work is this going to be? How much responsibility is this going to be? They find out that it's actually a lot of fun. Yeah. It's a great way to become a tourist in your own backyard. It's a great way to get to know your own province and your own community and get involved and become more active, because we all know that the pumpkin festival's going on, or the pumpkin people down in the valley, and we all say, we'll get there one day because it's always there. Right. But all of a sudden you've got these international students that you're showing them this all for the first time. So I've been here, there, and everywhere multiple times. I'm sure you have.
I went to Mahone Bay this weekend for the Scarecrow Festival with my two students.
Oh, cool.
But if you didn't have students,
probably wouldn't have gone.
You take that stuff for granted. We all do.
No,
everybody does.
Absolutely.
But when you have a newcomer, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed,
and they get to see it through their eyes.
That's right. And you get to kind of experience it as they would. in real time.
I mean, I can speak to myself, like for myself personally. I mean, I've never really taken on a student. My wife and I haven't, but
Yet.
Not yet. Honestly, but quite honestly, I would say we're open to the idea. Maybe just not yet, just because we have like a 2-year-old, and I don't, with the. How 2-year-olds can be. Like Monday night, he woke up at 12:30, like screaming because his molars are coming in, kind of thing. I don't know if I want to do that to somebody yet. But when older, and when they get a little older and stuff like that, it'd be something we consider. Because my wife was an au pair; she lived in Germany for a year, so she did her way of exchange and living with another culture. And I love traveling. I've been to Europe several times, and so I mean, I like all of that, and I actually really enjoy the fact that Terry and my mother and others have kind of brought these students in because I love having conversations with them. I do. I've developed relationships with them where it's like you have some great convos, and I've inadvertently benefited from that kind of thing. So it's great that they just are coming into the community, and some of them stay.
Oh, they do.
Like we've had several who have just said like, yeah, I'm not going back. They spend all of high school here. They go to university, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm just here now."
Well, my very first student, Madoka, she was here from Japan, and what you were saying earlier about being a little afraid, I'm a single woman. She was my very first student. And she spoke very little English, and it was very trying.
Be a little nerve-wracking at first.
It was. And thank God Kathy was next door, my sister, because she was much more patient with her than I was.
Okay.
Funny story, though.
I had friends who were retired teachers who helped me a lot with her.
Okay.
And do you want to tell your funny story before I tell you that Madoka is still here?
She is still here, yeah.
She is working for our university kind of partner, like Ed Genova.
Cool.
And she was at my house on New Year's Day. She still comes back to visit me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And she came to our annual conference. And she spoke very, very well. Yeah. CAPSI. Yeah, we had a CAPSI
And so, I mean, that's 11 years ago, and she's here 11 years later from Japan and everything. But
she never went back.
No, she never went back. Yeah. And it's so, the funny thing, though, is like, she says her sister, my mother, lived next door. Except the funny thing is about my mother is, and this has happened with Madoka, we're sitting there at Christmas, and Mom's talking to her. Mom likes to talk in a very elevated voice when people don't understand, or when the language barrier is there. And I said to her, I was like, Kathy, she is Japanese, not deaf.
But it does happen a lot that people will speak more loudly to people.
Yes.
Thinking that's not going to help them understand any better.
No.
No, it doesn't. Speaking clearer and maybe, slowly and emphasizing things a little bit more, that can help. But but I've actually found more and more as this program seems to have grown, because I mean, when Madoka was here, it seems like she was the only one, but now it seems like it's grown quite a bit. COVID definitely slowed you down a little bit, but just before COVID, it was huge, and it seemed like there was more students than I could keep track of, and but they all seemed like they were pretty good. Most of them were pretty good at English. It seems that way. So there's some rules though that you guys have, right? Obviously, male, you can't have male and female stay in the same household, I believe.
Well, it all depends, and that's probably going to change as, culture evolves but for the most part, if someone has a teenage daughter at home, we would place a teenage female student there.
Makes sense.
Or if someone had a male teenage son at home, we're probably going to place another male teenager there. And I think some of that is just, I had a teenage daughter, and Terry's that I hosted for many, many years. And so, I mean, did I want some, real good-looking, suave Brazilian boy moving in?
That's fair. That's just the reality.
No, I didn't.
That's fair.
But that's the reality of things. Obviously, they're teenagers. They're young.
They're teenagers, but anything
Exotic.
can happen anywhere. But it was just, that's my generation. Yeah.
No, and that's fair. And I mean, but
that is evolving.
Obviously, there's some things that are changing and things like that. The other thing too, languages and things like that. Like you encourage them to obviously learn English and enhance that. So it's my understanding you don't often put same countries in the same household.
Oh, never.
Yeah,
No.
okay.
Or the same language.
Or even same
Same
language.
language. That's what I mostly meant.
Because
yeah.
Chile and Colombia would
Right.
both speak Spanish.
Right. Yes.
So no, we would never put the same national, and really we wouldn't put two continents together for the most part, if we can help it.
Yeah,
I mean, we want to, if we're going to
so
put somebody
smart.
with a host sister or a host brother from another country, we want them to learn as much from each other as they would from being with a Canadian family. So
Right.
somebody from Italy, European country, we would want to put them with somebody from Latin America or somebody from
I
Asia.
talked to a dude the other day, and he was very young, and I was like, he just came to this country, and he speaks like better English than I do, and Arabic is his first language. I'm like, dude, how'd you get so good so fast, right? And it was just he immersed himself. Right.
Yeah.
He said, I surrounded myself with English-speaking people, and that's what's it. And he said, if he hung around with his Arabic friends, he would kind of
Yes.
slip back. He's like, I lose everything.
And you can do that.
He mentally focused for a couple of years, he said, and then he was able to immerse himself in a language. Right.
Right.
So that's so cool and so important to.
And it's easier in rural Nova Scotia compared to Toronto or Vancouver.
Exactly.
100%, because there's
a
so much there.
big difference.
Yeah.
And why is that?
Well, English is primarily the first language
Oh,
here. I mean, I
okay,
know,
yes,
now,
okay, yeah.
especially in Halifax, most of the immigration is only happening in
Right.
Halifax at this point. So we've got a little bit more of that in HRM.
Mm-hmm.
But on the outskirts, I met it's funny because an old student that I used to host, a prior student that I used to host from Brazil was coming back to visit me probably 8 or 9 years ago. And he called me when he landed at the airport and he said, I've met this guy and he's from Chile. And he's coming to Halifax and he'd like to, can invite him to supper? And I said, sure, no problem. And when he arrived at my house, because Felipe had told me that he had been living in Toronto, he met him on the flight and he'd been in Toronto for the last 6 months. So when he arrived for dinner, I expected that he was going to speak a little bit of English, and he spoke no English, none whatsoever. Because I was getting ready to head out the door to Chile, so I was saying to him, "Oh my gosh, where are you from? I'm heading to Santiago next week," and I wanted to pick his brain a little bit, and
right. Yeah.
and Felipe had to translate every word, and I said, "I thought you said he lived in Toronto for the last 6 months." I was kind of confused. And he said he did, but all of his friends were Spanish.
Right.
And
So you
he
learn
didn't.
nothing.
No.
You find your pack.
So I guess the people in Toronto told him, if you want to learn English,
Yeah.
you need to get a ticket and move to the East Coast and go to Nova Scotia. So he ended up working in a fish plant
wow.
in Shelburne.
Yeah, that'll do it.
There you
And
go.
They'll sound like Tobin.
yeah, but he didn't find many Spanish speakers there, and his English came a long way.
Yeah.
Is that we don't put more than 6 students from the same country in one school.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So if I have 6,
That makes sense.
If I have 6 German students, I can only put 6 in one school.
Okay.
Now, I have 2 schools, so technically I could take 12 German students, but that's one thing we try to. The only downfall of that is that right now at JL, I have 17 students, and of those 17, 6 of them different countries, but are Spanish speakers, and I have to get on them too.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, actually, since we're on to that, why don't you guys actually explain what you guys do for the organization? Now that you mentioned that. So you said you have Ilsley and Citadel, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So
They're my 2 schools. I'm called a homestay coordinator, so it's my job to do the recruiting of the host families.
Mm-hmm.
So we
And you live in the community, which is very important.
yeah.
And when I started as a host parent, I was, what did I say, 4 years into it, 3 years into it. And I remember them calling me and asking me if I wanted to be the homestay coordinator for JL Ilsley, because they knew I lived in the area. So I kind of have a full-time job. And I said, that's okay. There are only 5 students there. And I had one at Kennard. I had a junior high that year too. So I had 6 students, which was very manageable with my other job. And then I just started to grow it
Right.
because I enjoyed it so much. And just getting the word out there. So, I mean, we do Facebook campaigns. We're doing this campaign where we have posters up all over the place, and just the best one still is word of mouth, right?
Yeah.
I remember sitting around my kitchen table one night, and Sharon Blanchard was there, and she was the one who
Kind
got
of
me
introduced it
hosting.
to you. Yeah.
And then a couple of my other host parents were there. And then there was this one lady. I said, Tracy, you're the only one who hasn't hosted. She said, yeah, I got to go now. And she got up and left. But, I mean, that's how you draw them in.
Right.
Right.
You know, oh, look, see how much fun I had with Thomas and Carlos. They were great students.
Yeah.
Right?
You're doing a great thing in the process. It's just feeling good. I mean, you feel good when you
So-
do things like that for others and help grow your own mind and others. I think it's really, really quite sweet.
Yeah.
So then we vet all of the families.
Yeah.
Like they have to do a criminal records check and a child abuse registry
Makes sense.
check, and we have to go to their house and make sure that they're, not putting them in a closet somewhere. They have to have their own room with a regulation window door.
Okay.
And so once we see that all of that is met, then we ask the host families to fill out a profile as well. The students will fill out a profile in their home country, and we get to know our host families. And then when we look at the profiles of the students, we try to match them as best we can.
Nice.
Like if we have a host family who has a boy that's right into soccer, well, I'm going to look for a Brazilian student for him or something like that, right?
Right.
So
I've seen some of them. They're actually quite detailed, like the
applications?
profiles. And
Yes.
Well, the profiles of like the students.
Yeah.
You shared them.
and the host families as well.
Yeah, because you go through and you see them, and like you kind of really they tell you who they are, kind of on paper. So yeah, but yeah. So Kelly, what do you do with the organization?
Not a whole lot.
Oh dear.
No, I'm busy, but I really have to say it's the homestay coordinators that are really the front line and the face of the program, because they live in the community like Terry does. So she lives in the JL community, which is incredibly important, because I feel that a member of the community knows the community.
JL High School, right?
JL High School, yeah.
Cool.
And,
judges.
they're recruiting the families, they're getting to know the families, they're building a rapport with the families. They're the ones seeing the kids in school every week. They're the ones that are doing the matchmaking right from the beginning, which is incredibly important, because that really can set the whole tone for the experience.
Yeah.
And so I'm program manager. So I oversee just a lot of the day-to-day operations and make sure that policies are being followed. And of course, always making sure that we're evolving and making the program better.
It seems really like you've obviously hosted a lot of students, and you've hosted. It's interesting to see how much fun this actually gets to be, where you start off as hosts, hosting these kids, and then all of a sudden you start working for the organization and all that stuff.
Well, that's two of us right here.
Yeah, that's the thing, right?
There's more than us.
I think of the 7 homestay coordinators that we have now,
Yeah, we have 7 in HRM.
Yeah. Okay.
I think we all hosted. Did Jen host maybe?
I don't think.
Okay.
But for the most part,
For
everyone
6 out of the
Yeah.
7
has
have
hosted
hosted.
students.
Yeah. So that's cool.
Yeah.
So really, you're kind of like, I mean, because we've had so many that have actually stayed, you're kind of another level of immigration in a way, because you're really kind of exposing people and they end up staying, kind of thing. So it's
Such a smart way to immigrate into a country.
it really
Yeah.
is.
And
Right.
25% of our students stay
Yeah.
for
Wow.
university.
25%, okay.
25% stay for university.
Awesome.
And you have to think about it too. So these students, not only are they paying tuition,
Yeah,
which
and a lot
contributes
more, because the international students pay
That's
more.
right.
Yeah.
On average, about 19,000 for a full year student.
Yeah.
That
But
should be a
also-
separate episode.
Yes.
That's crazy.
But they're contributing to the economy, because when you
Yeah.
think about it,
Yeah,
when
big
they're
time.
here, they're shopping.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're buying movie tickets
Yeah.
and bus tickets
Yeah.
and plane tickets and entertainment and insurance, and,
And
they're
eventually
shopping
become
at the
leaders,
malls.
right, in the community, or they
Yeah.
get nib, and they get such confidence in the community because they've been fostered into it,
That's
right? From the
Yeah.
from the jump, right?
Yeah.
So it's so cool.
Yeah. So, is there anything else that you want to like share with us that you think people really need to know about this program?
I'll just have one quick.
Oh, you have one? Okay.
No, not even a question. Just how anyone that's listening to this podcast is still on board and say, this is something that I want to explore a little bit further. What's the best way for them to reach out and kind of get a hold of somebody?
So if they wanted to reach out, we have a general email inbox, and that is hostastudent@hrce.ca. And we monitor that inbox on a regular basis. And if anyone's interested, we can send them lots of information about the program. If they want to take it a step further, we would set them up an interview with their homestay coordinator in their area.
Cool.
And just to determine, that they're suitable for hosting and ensure that they understand what the expectations are before they make any type of decision.
Yeah, so you don't have to jump all the way in, but if you're just curious, host a student at hrce.ca, right?
Correct.
Cool.
Awesome. Is there anything else before we kind of close it up that you guys wanted, that you think people need to know?
For me, the only thing I would really say as a real selling feature, I guess, which is not what I'm here to do, but speaking more from a host parent than program manager, is I can tell you that what I got out of this program, what I received from it, was tenfold what I put into it. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I could sit here and tell you for a week on end all the benefits that myself and my family experience from hosting international students from all over the world, and still experience. I mean, they're still very, very much a part of my life today, and will continue to be. And if anybody was on the fence, I'd love to talk to them. They can speak to any of our coordinators, because I think the program's really speaks for itself.
And because a nice little fun fact for us, this podcast is listened to in 11 different countries.
Oh, wow.
So
Soon to be more.
Okay,
But on top of that,
wonderful.
if there's anyone out there, any students out there that are listening, come here for a little bit. Get through your high school. When you turn 19, the beer's fantastic.
We have great beer.
Wait till they're 19 now.
Wait until you're 19.
When you're ready. But it's a young age, too, compared to other countries.
Some other countries,
A lot of the other countries.
Yeah, you gotta wait till 21 in the U.S. That's
The students.
25 in India.
Oh, my.
The students here, a lot of them, they are of legal drinking age in their country.
15, 16.
16 or whatever.
Yeah.
But even if they are 19 when they come here, we don't get many who are 19.
Right.
But they still sign a contract that they will not drink alcohol.
That's
In our program.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they have to abide by rules within the program.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But, come here for a little bit and then get out of the program
When they graduate.
and drink the beers.
One day.
So on that, I think we can end it. We can end it with a
cheers,
cheers. So
yeah.
cheers to
Okay.
the
Thank you so
International
much,
Student
guys.
Cheers,
Program.
guys. Thank you for having us.
Thank
So
you
cool
very
learning
much.
about this program.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Terry.
And thanks
Station 6.
Station 6 for a last minute host that we really appreciate it.
Very much so.
Thanks again.